Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Recognize this face? That's right, Phyllis Diller. Actress, pianist, and comedian, she was also a fan of a series of books by an Omaha author. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the B.O.O.B girls. Joining us to talk more about it are author and presenter Joy Johnson and Rita Hurlbut. Thank you very much for being here and welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting us.
Joy, I think that we should start by telling our viewers what B.O.O.B stands for.
That might help. That might help. It stands for Burned Out Old Broads.
Burned Out Old Broads.
And the whole schmear is the Burned Out Old Broads at Table 12.
Okay, now before we talk about the
Yes.
girls, right, I'd like to talk a little bit about your life prior to introducing us to this series.
And there was a life prior to the series. For years, I was what was known as a bereavement specialist. My husband, Dr. Marvin Johnson, and I founded a bereavement resource center called Centering Corporation. And you had some of our staff on, our executive director and a user on recently. So we founded a bereavement resource center that became international. And when we started, there were 7 books on grief. That was in 1977. Now we carry over 1,000. So grief has come out of the closet in a lot of ways. And we recognize it now as a normal part of life, not something that's sick or not a mental illness. So we did grief, in other words, and then we also founded Teddy Bear Hollow, the Center for Grieving Children in this area. And I wrote books on grief. I presented on grief with Marv, my husband. And when I retired 7 years ago, or semi-retired, that was when I started writing the B.O.O.B girls.
Okay, now Turkey Lake.
Turkey Lake
has some significance, and we're going to show our viewers a little bit of video from there. Why is that so important?
Oh, Turkey Lake is a beautiful little lake with a campground. We were full-time RVers for a time, and you're looking right now at our beautiful dog Barney and our RV, a big fifth wheel. And I went to Turkey Lake one year in Orlando, and I sat down on the couch, put my laptop on my lap, and started writing. And Maggie Patton drove her old Jeep right onto a cemetery road in Omaha, Nebraska, and the B.O.O.B girls came to life. I have no idea where the name came from. They'd been knocking around in my head, these 4 old broads, for a long time, and they are typical old ladies. I mean, they have health issues, they have problems. You get 4 people together, my age, with this color hair, you're going to have a medical report. So they have illnesses, they have everything that comes with growing old. They have grief. They're all widows. But the series is hilarious. It is a comedy because this is the first generation, Kathy. My generation is the first generation that can laugh at itself as it ages. You know, my mother didn't have Maxine, the Hallmark card, Maxine, didn't have email to send around all of the things that are funny about growing old. And so we look at humor. We need to laugh. That's Phyllis Diller, who endorsed the books, was the queen of burned out old broads and had so much tragedy in her life and knew how important it was to laugh.
Joy, tell us a little bit about the story of Phyllis Diller and how she even became aware of what you were doing here in Omaha.
I have no idea how she became aware. The first book, which was just the B.O.O.B girls, the Burned Out Old Broads at Table 12, because I only planned to write one book, and I wrote that as gifts, basically. And it had been out about 6 weeks, and it was just going surprisingly well. And I got a beautiful little white card with a bright red stiletto on it. And inside it said, "Thank you for writing this delightful book, Phyllis Diller." And so I immediately wrote her back, and I sent her some of the grief material I had written, and I asked her if she would endorse the B.O.O.B girls. And she shot right back and said, use these words, "The B.O.O.B girls are the good girls." Phyllis Diller. Then she said, "Thank you for the grief material." And not everybody says that. And I Googled her and found that 3 of her 6 children had died. A 4th child was a schizophrenic. So if anybody knew how necessary laughter is in tragedy, it was Phyllis Diller. And I was honored. I have no idea how she got the book. Somebody sent the book.
And I can't even imagine, as you said, how that would make you feel to know that you are touching people in such a way.
Oh, what an honor.
And
Yes,
if you're touching her,
right.
obviously, lots of people.
Lots of people. In fact, we're going to do a special, we've talked about it, on the website to replace stolen books. These books are stolen all the time, and I think Rita probably has some of the same experience. Loan a book to a friend, you never see it again.
Right.
It goes on the road.
Yep.
It's from boob girl to boob girl to boob girl, and I have received beautiful letters. I never thought of getting fan mail, but I've received letters from one lady who said, I have a critical illness. I have highlighted this book and go back and read those highlights because it lets us laugh. My mission in life, make old ladies laugh.
Well, and Rita, not that this is an appropriate segue, because I'm not implying that you're old by any stretch, right? But I would
She's
imagine
old, basically old.
I would imagine that she has made you laugh, and you don't need to mail in your critique. You're right here, special delivery.
Absolutely.
Tell us what you thought and how you were introduced to this series.
She was having a launch of the first couple books that she had sent out, and I took some Red Hatters. I'm a very avid Red Hat chapter queen, and so we went up there, and I just fell in love with the books because I can associate to them. I'm widowed myself, and I have a wiry sense of humor, a lot of my friends say, and the adventures that she took these girls on, I was right there. I just got into them and could feel the traveling time that she would go here, there, and wherever, and the shenanigans that they would be into. And it gives you a little sense of being, they have spunk. And I like that in a woman. Women, as we age, I have learned in my early mature years that you don't have to be old. As I've often told a lot of my friends, there might be snow on the roof, but there's fire in the oven. So I like the challenge that she gives these women of taking them all over the state. I connected to, I'm a Nebraska girl by birth, and she would name off different points around that she would have these different things happen. And I thought, oh, this is so new. This is so cool that she's doing this. And I've become a fan, and we've even performed for her for a few of the launches that she's had on the different new books that have come out. So we've kind of become friends. So I'm very pleased to be invited here to at least give an input of why they are important to have these out.
Yeah, Joy, and I would imagine listening to her right now is a big feel-good for you, because was it changing the perception of aging?
Oh,
Part of the
yes.
whole reason that you took the time and spent the energy and all of your expertise in doing this.
Good point, Kathy, because it is so rewarding. It is just, I love it, absolutely love it. And what my soapbox in the books, every book at some point, one of the girls will say, older women are beautiful. I really think older women are beautiful. And our society doesn't always say that. It says you have to be a size 4, you have to, and be young. And even if you look at the commercials for adult diapers, they're young women, poor things. And so we aren't on television, we aren't marketed to, but at some point in every book, one of the girls will say, just look at us. Our faces are sculpted and chiseled by joy and sorrow and tears and laughter. Our hair is blown thin by winds of experience. And there is so much knowledge and wisdom in our heads can't hold it all. It has to drift down through the rest of our bodies. That's why we get thicker as we age.
Joy, when do we turn the corner, do you think? I mean, is there a magic age that we realize, hey, this isn't so bad, we can do this, and we do look at it optimistically, as you've just explained. What's your thought on that?
I think it can come at any age. You know, I had a neighbor the other day who said, we're the same age, but I'm older than you. Which, you know, is true. A lot of it. I was so lucky. My husband died in March. And a lot of times, ladies my age have grandchildren, and that's about it, because they've taken care of a husband. But I had the B.O.O.B girls as a passion. I did 80 speeches last year. And what fun, and fun to see these people who, I talk about Vidal Sassoon hair. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I talk about but pin curls. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
One of the things we say is we all remember cross our hearts bras. Well, now they're cross your waist bras. You know, so we, you know, to be able to laugh, and it really depends. I think it's a heck of a lot of just personality. Somebody said once, you show me a mean old lady who is 80 and I will show you a mean little girl at age 7. So we have a personality that really, I think, determines how we're going to look at ourselves as we grow old.
Let me ask you something. When you're
Sure.
out presenting, most commonly asked question of you,
How can I get to be with these women?
and your response?
There's always room for one more at table 12.
Okay, and what does that mean exactly?
That means that there are always people to support you, that you can always be a part of these books. You can always be one of the girls in your imagination and in your heart. And I did something that I was so glad I did. I had 2 groups of 4 women come up and talk to me when I was presenting one, saying they had their own B.O.O.B girl group. And one of the groups said, we went to everywhere you mentioned in the book, because it's all Omaha or Nebraska. They didn't
Easy
go out to
places to
Fort
get to.
Robinson, but they did go to everywhere in Omaha. So in the next book, I put a Omaha tour of everywhere the girls have gone. The old market, where Mark's is their favorite restaurant. They go to Mark's. They go to Round the Bend Steakhouse for the Testicle Festival. And so
That's
it's
real,
a
too.
great day trip for girls.
Rita's validating you here. She's
Oh,
telling
goes
us
out
that's
to
real,
place.
right?
You can't get her away from the Testicle Festival.
I've taken several people down there to enjoy that. But I guess maybe me being a Red Hatter as well. I joined back 10 years ago, and their philosophy is similar to what Joy's presenting with these girls. And maybe that's why I was drawn into their lifestyle and the willingness to get out and not be afraid. And it's a wonderful feeling to have the privilege to age. I mean, not everybody is given that privilege, and I cherish every day. And with the B.O.O.B girls, you can have these adventures and think, I might be able to do that.
Sure, and Rita has contributed to the books. Tell them in book 2, Lies, Spies, and Cinnamon Rolls.
We had a very dear friend that had very serious surgery, lung surgery, and I come up with the idea of creating a special hat for her, being that she was a Sister Red Hatter. So I created a bedpan. I went and bought a new one from the local pharmaceutical company, and I created this red hat. And so 2 or 3 of us went up there to present this hat to Roseanne. And when we walked in, she was so happy to see us. She says, "Oh, you brought me a new hat." And I says, "Yes, sirree." And I said, "You know what? It's pretty versatile." I said, "If you don't want to wear it," and I turned it upside down, I said, "You can use it." And she started laughing. She says, "Why do you make me laugh?" She says, "I'm hurting from surgery, and yet you still make me laugh." But she was so proud of that. And Joy took that idea, and she's got it into one of her books, where I believe it's Mary Beth has
That's the one.
There it is. And so I can relate to them, you know, and we've done some dancing, because I've got a dance group that we dance, and I portrayed us coming into this meeting unexpectedly, and Joy and I had already worked out the commentary on what we were going to do. And when I got up there, I looked around the women and the men that were there, and I said, "Whoops, I think we're at the wrong night." I said, "I thought we were supposed to be at the Meadowlark Community Center practicing for this dance." And she says, well, you're not. She said, you've interrupted me. And I says, well, I'm sorry. I said, but you know what? If the people don't mind, while we're here, can we go ahead and dance? Because we might forget it tomorrow. And the people started laughing. And so we did our silly hula dance that we all come prepared to do. And so it gave her an option to draw humor from the books and from real life senior citizens that we all are. And we've done it 2 or 3 times before. I've been up at the Century Corporation to perform up there. So it's we've gained a real good friendship here, and I'm thoroughly waiting. I have read every book, and I'm waiting for number 7.
Rita, let me ask you something because of listening to your experiences and your relationship now with Joy. What as a society are we missing? Right, so I meet you and I look at you, and of course we all jump to conclusions, right? But what is it that you want me to think and feel when I meet a Rita who has lost a spouse and is going forward with her life? What can I be doing to support you, societally speaking? Does that make sense?
In a way, I think it's to accept us as who we are, and not play up that we're aged and that we need to sit home and we need to be coddled and worried about, and let us be who we are. Some women don't choose to be outward like that, but I'm a person to live life to its fullest, and we have live, love, and laugh within our society. And by expressing, we are in community parades in town and things, and to show other people that, just as I said before, just because we've got a little aging on our face and lines in our faces, and the looks are not as a 30, 40-year-old woman would be, but we still can be vital to the community. We still have brains in our head, such as I say, and we want to enjoy life, and we want to be considered that we still have a voice, and that we will go on and we will make something of society.
Yeah, a voice that is being communicated through Joy, who not only is listening to you, but documenting and sharing with others. I know we put up that second book. Is there anything that you want to add to that second book?
I think the star of the second book, really the theology, when I speak, I say the theology of the series is in the second book, in the 4 great religious truths. And the 4 great religious truths are: Palestinians do not recognize Jewish rights to the Holy Land. Jews do not recognize Jesus as their Messiah. Protestants do not recognize the Pope as their religious leader. Baptists do not recognize each other at Hooters. And it goes downhill from there, Kathy.
I'm going to trust you.
I'll
take your word
when
for
I
it.
present, everyone gets very serious because they think it's going to be controversial. But it isn't. But in book 2 you're lies, spies, and cinnamon rolls. You're guaranteed to gain 5 pounds just reading the book with the cinnamon rolls.
Joy,
And
have you always been funny?
I have had a warped mind forever.
Okay, maybe warped. Okay, but you've always had a sense of humor.
Yes.
That you can incorporate into anything.
Into
that you're
anything,
doing.
and even when I do things on grief now, which I still do some, I say just because the subject is very serious doesn't mean it has to be spoken of seriously at all times. I think we need humor through every circumstance in our life. It keeps us alive.
How do people find that joy if they're in the midst, especially of something as serious as grief? Where do they find that?
I think support groups have come into being, particularly after 9/11, when the Red Cross did the greatest favor ever by confirming and affirming support groups. And a good example is one lady who came into a bereavement support group, and people were laughing, and they were having coffee and talking and standing around before the meeting began, and they were laughing. And her thought was, how can they laugh when I am hurting so much? Then she said, but a little voice in the back of my head said, sometime, Irene, you will laugh again too. And I think that's such a basic thing that can we encourage it? I sure hope so. Because people, I would say watch a funny movie, your funniest movie that you know makes you laugh. Do something that will help you to enjoy it. As Marv was dying, and then shortly after, I had a mantra. I said every day as I walked down I live in a retirement community with very long hallways, and I would walk down the hallway to get my mail, and I would say, ever this day, I resolve to find bits of happiness, to laugh, to recognize joy and beauty, and live a life of gratitude, for I am a lucky, happy woman. And so that self-talk we give ourselves, if I said that 5 times by the time I got to my mailbox, and then 5 times on the way back, by the time I got back to our apartment, I believed it.
And it's amazing what that does for the people around you, right, Rita? I mean, books or no books here, your attitude is everything.
Attitude is everything.
And it's a draw for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Without the humor in life, it makes life very difficult, and it makes it easier when you can laugh at yourself. I try to, when I'm with a group of people, usually the pun goes to me. I'll make myself look silly in some way to make someone laugh, and that's what is part of life. And you are drawn to people that have a happier viewpoint, because you think about it and you really don't care to be around people that have a real negative attitude. And I have learned over my young years that I have reached that if you keep a pleasant attitude and put a little humor into life, you're going to draw more friends that way.
Yeah, speaks
and be
volumes
easier to
you.
live with. Yeah, much easier. Yeah.
I'd like to be around her, Joy.
I'd
like to hang with her.
She's
Absolutely.
Good. It's fun.
You're welcome.
It's fun.
All right, I want to go on with book 3, and if you could just
3.
briefly, because we have 6
briefly
total
talk
right
about
now in the series. So
Sandhills and Shadows, and in this one they go to Fort Robinson. I love a part of this book because you, Kathy Wyatt, were the auctioneer to auction off a character, and we ended up with 2 characters. And the first auction of a character for Teddy Bear Hollow was in this book, and the woman who won it met with me, and I said, Nancy, they're going to go to Fort Robinson. You can be at Meadow Lakes before they go. You can be at the fort when they get there, and they're going to dream themselves back into history. You can be in one of the brothels in Crawford, the fort town, if you want. And she said, no, I want to run a nudist RV resort on the way to the fort.
They did.
Now you try riding that into Highway 2. So they go back to Fort Robinson. This is the most serious one of the series, and one reviewer said, this is quite good. It's almost literature.
almost.
I'm not writing in literature. We're gonna, I loved it. It's almost literature.
All right, book 4, Joy. Book four. Let's move on.
After book 3, I didn't have another book in my head. And
Oh,
I
no.
thought, I have 3 books. I'm very, very lucky. And a couple of people said, you need to get an agent so they'll go national. And I was on an agent's website, and she said in a very loud font, I absolutely refuse to read any manuscript that has a dead body on the first page. And I thought, what a heck of an idea. So in book 4, Murder at Meadow Lakes, the first page, Percolator Rasmussen, who is a mean old dude who goes through book 2 on one page, is face down, spread-eagled on the dining room floor of Meadow Lakes Retirement Community. The back of his head is smashed in, his throat is cut. There's a nylon cord around his neck, a bullet hole in his jacket, and a knife in his back. And Mary Rose McGill, the sweet Catholic girl, says, are we sure he's dead? And her main squeeze, Wiley Vondra, says, if he isn't, he better have damn good insurance. So that is book 4, is solving a murder with a new boob girl, Marge Aaron. If you say it fast, Marge Aaron. Say it fast and it's
Margarine.
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 So she
Margarine.
better be good.
Failed.
And Marge Aaron in book 5 has a red cane. And she comes in book 4 with her cane. The cane has bling. The cane has bling. And there are 5 jewels. She presses one jewel, it turns into a taser. A second, low-powered rifle. Third, tripping pellets all over the floor. Fourth, smoke screen. And a fifth, knives pop out on the back and up in the sides. And there is a beautiful gold lariat in the handle like Wonder Woman. And Marge is never without her cane. And at the end of book 4, she's thinking, what a great title for the next book, The Red Cane. But you're looking at book 5 now, and the title is The Secret of the Red Cane, because it is in honor of all of us who grew up with Nancy Drew.
Oh, sure.
Nancy Drew is 80 years old. Nancy Drew is a boob girl. And Nancy Drew had more exclamation points than any other novel ever. So they are exclamation point worthy. And they need to be girl detectives like Nancy Drew, because a wicked family from Florida, the Bush family, has bought Meadow Lakes and turned it into a den of iniquity with prostitution and illegal liquor and gambling and an underground Viagra ring. And they're headed by their brother Thorny Bush, who brought his 2 wicked sisters with him, Rose Bush and Lilac Bush. Their enforcer is Huckleberry Whacker Bush, and their mother is Beateronda Bush.
Rita, I'm just smiling listening to her. We have 2 minutes left, so I want to just briefly tell us about
Her
6, because I want to get to
imagination
7.
is
I want to get to 7, but we don't have much time, so briefly tell us about 6.
6 is from the Eye of the Moose, and to take off on the old Abbott and Costello scary movies, where there is always a revolving fireplace and a big dining room table, and across from the fireplace is a mounted moose head with a panel in one eye where a human eye can come out and watch what's going on from the eye of the moose.
You're funny, you're creative, it's just amazing to me. And 7 is yet to come. Give us a sneak preview.
7 is in the book that called 10 Little Puritans, take off of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None.
And that one is due out.
It'll be out by June at least, and you'll be invited to the launch.
I would love
the launch party. We do what the girls do when they have movie marathons. We drink cheap champagne and eat popcorn with beautiful little cheese crackers and M&Ms.
Unbelievable. All right, I want to put up your website, and that way folks can get more information. They can read a little bit more about you. This has just been a lot of fun.
And you want me to say, be sure to put www.
And why is that?
Because if you put the Boob Girls, you're going to meet Rachel and Bambi.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that. So
The real Boob
www.theboobgirls.com. Joy and Rita, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your sense of humor with us and your stories. We appreciate it very much. Best wishes to you.
It went way too fast,
I know
Kathy.
it
I'm
did.
adopting you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.